Hello everyone, welcome back to my hobby blog. My name is Christian, and today we are doing sort of a random type video where I'm going to be ranking the Malazan Book of the Fallen books that I have read so far. I've read the first 7 books of the book by Stephen Erickson, and I've also read Knight of Knives and also Return of the Crimson God, which I need a reorder where I put Knight of Knives. I think I read it after book 4 or book 5. I can't remember. I'll just put it after book 4 for now. But I did put this in the order that I did read them. So if anyone wants to kind of follow along with me from here on out after this video, I'm currently on book 8, so I will not be reviewing these 3 books. Maybe I should have added another column, but I'll just leave it at the bottom. So without further ado, this will not be spoiler filled. So if you have not read any of these books, you should be fine. I will be talking around a lot of what happens and giving the most vague impressions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start this ranking. So Gardens of the Moon. This is book 1 of Malazan. This is a pretty great book in my opinion. I don't know if I would put it into the higher tiers. Also, the tiers that we have here was created by somebody else, but it is Elder God. This is sort of the S tier. Then we have Ascendant, which is A tier, and then we have B tier, which is Imperial Mage, and then High Mage, and then Squad Mage. I really love those names, so I did not change them. They also really helped me to kind of visualize what the ranking is of all of the sort of different classifications of the different people. I'm trying to be as vague as I can, but Elder God is going to be like the 5 out of 5 book for me. That is near perfect, closest to my heart. A will be basically 5 out of 5. I ranked most of these books 5 out of 5 because I just love them all so much. And then Imperial Mage will sort of be like a 4.5 out of 5 because I don't have any of these books ranked low in terms of my rating, or rated low. So, and then High Mage will sort of be like a 4 out of 5, and then Squad Mage will be anything below that. So, for Gardens of the Moon, this was actually the second time that I had attempted to read this book. The first time I tried to read this was back in 2013. I was still in high school, and I reread A Song of Ice and Fire many times throughout high school. And it was around 2013 when I was a junior that I was like, okay, like I want to read more fantasy. So I ended up picking up at Barnes & Noble Memory Sorrow Thorn by Tad Williams. I picked up the first 3 books of I'm looking at my shelf now. Oh yeah, I picked up the first 3 books of The Wheel of Time. I picked up Gardens of the Moon and a few other books that I will not bother to try and recollect. But nonetheless, I got about halfway through the book. I got to Darujistan, just to give sort of the mark for those who have read it, sort of where I stopped. And then the second time around, I reread it, the first half of it, and then I went to the end. I had no issues reading this book. People, I believe, overstate the difficulty of this series. One piece of advice that I give a few people who ask me about, reading Malazan, I tell them, just surrender to the flow of the river. Kind of be like an Aes Sedai, surrender to Saidar, and just kind of enjoy the ride. You don't have to know every single little detail. All of it, the most important things will be reiterated over and over again. And I think Gardens of the Moon, all of the different characters that we meet, all of the epic moments throughout this book are just amazing. But I think it is not as great as the other ones because it is kind of the first book. Stephen Erickson has talked about how he had to translate a screenplay into the novel. So he was sort of having a lot of difficulty and kind of dumped the reader into the deep end. He says that in an interview with 10 Very Big Books, a Malazan podcast, he mentioned how he wanted to, if he had to rewrite the book, he would kind of give more context to what is going on. But he is happy overall with the book, and I think, again, the difficulty is overstated. So if you are kind of afraid to start the series and feel like you're going to be lost all the time, you will not be lost. What you will be lost on is the main storyline, which is not really that revealed up until much later, which I think is okay. I loved Gardens of the Moon. I really enjoyed it when I first read it, way back in 2013. I don't know why I stopped. I remember just really kind of. I didn't look anything up, but I felt as if I was kind of intimidating myself somehow by constantly reading on Reddit that people were like, oh, you're going to need, guides to read this book. You're going to have zero idea what's going on. And as I was rereading it, I guess last year when I was starting my journey through this series, I really felt like I should not have stopped. And I kind of regret having stopped. But at the same time, where I am today in my life, I feel like I'm getting a lot more out of Malazan than I would have ever gotten out of the series when I was, I guess, 16 or so, when I first attempted the series. So, Gardens of the Moon, I would definitely put it at 4.5, which I believe I said was the high mage. Or maybe Imperial Mage. I don't know. I will have the pictures on the left, like as I add more. The ones further to the left will be lower in ranking than the ones on the right. And then it'll kind of be like a book where you're reading it and you're doing like that. So, okay. Dead House Gates. Oh my god. So this is the book that Steven Erikson talks about being pretty easy to get into compared to the other books. And a lot of readers say that also. And I add that this is probably the closest to my heart. I was never bored while I was reading this book. I loved the locations. We do shift to a new continent, and we get a whole new cast of characters, which is really funny because that was not the intention when Steven Erikson was writing the books. He was a few hundred pages into what was Book 2, Memories of Ice, but then he lost the draft, and he just did not feel like restarting from the beginning, so he decided to just go to Book 3 instead, which ended up being Dead House Gates. So he released these kind of out of order, but they are still very well done because he sort of shifts a lot of what the original plan was. And Dead House Gates is just one of my favorite books in fantasy. I love the Chain of Dogs, for example. Coltane, I think, is one of the most interesting characters in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And God, there was some parts of this book where I was just crying. And I do not do that ever when I'm reading books, but this book especially, just something about Steven Erikson's writing. It just really cuts deep. It really leaves a lasting impression on you, and that's why Dead House Gates is Elder God for me. So it's really fun to see sort of the jump in quality, or not really quality, but oh my gosh, sort of the jump from book 1 to book 2. I really loved reading book 1, but book 2 is sort of when I cemented myself and my goal of finishing all of these books. And I'm very close now. I'm on book 8. I started the prologue this morning. Loved it. But without further ado, or to ignore all that, Dead House Gates is just so good. The character work is incredible. I love the world building. The world building is unmatched compared to Steven Erikson. Compared to any other author. I think he is the best at it. He's the best at really a lot of these things that a lot of authors kind of specialize in, but really don't have the wide breadth of skill that Steven Erikson has with doing everything just so perfectly. So Dead House Gates is going to be Elder God for me. Memories of Ice. Now this book is a fan favorite in the community. I recognize that it is sort of, I don't know if it's better than Dead House Gates, but I think Memories of Ice just lands so well in terms of its payoffs and its conclusions because it's continuing the story from book one. And I just really, really love the last, I would say, 300, 400 pages of Memories of Ice. I still think of many of those moments, and I think it's one of the most epic endings of the series. And we were also introduced to a faction that I am really still kind of disgusted by, and I think it's a really neat handling of the trope, which I will not talk about specifically, but I really love everything that's in this book as well. It's right there with Deadhouse Gates, but I'm going to put it just below Deadhouse Gates. So, because Deadhouse Gates is a lot more closer to my heart to sort of what I like to read in fantasy. Memories of Ice, I think, is just one of the best overall Malazan books. Now, House of Chains is really fun because we sort of get a shift in the writing style. Everyone knows that we get sort of one POV through much of this book, and that POV is of somebody who is not somebody you could enjoy being around. It's not somebody you like. They are quite monstrous in a lot of ways, but I really love kind of that character's arc throughout this book. And also the continuation of what's been happening in book two. Because, again, these books were kind of released out of order of what he intended, but House of Chains was just incredible. I don't remember as much specifics as I do many of these other books, but I recall just really enjoying the kind of fantastical journey that our main character goes through. And also the ending is just so incredible to me. I know it's not really loved as much as the other endings, but I think it's thematically just perfect. I won't say any more about the ending than that, but I will say there are some very problematic storylines and moments in this book, specifically because there are some very monstrous characters that kind of thread their way in and out of the story in this book. And there are just some really kind of fucked up moments. And if you have a weak stomach or do not kind of don't want to read those type of stories that contain specific sort of subject matters, this book is going to be very hard for you to read. It is quite graphic at some moments, and I will say I'm going to dock it a little bit for that, but not too much. I'm going to put it in Ascendant. So, House of Chains, I think, is a 5 out of 5 book. I loved it from beginning to end, but it is really hard to read at times, and it does not make you want to kind of read faster. Well, it does make you want to read faster, but it didn't make me want to read as quick as I usually did. It was hard to return to the book. I wasn't reading, 100 to 200 pages a day when I was reading House of Chains. It took me a little longer to get through House of Chains compared to Deadhouse Gates or Memories of Ice. Guardians of the Moon did take me a while, probably about 2 weeks or so, but that was mostly just so I could really focus in on the details and make sure I wasn't being lost throughout. Knight of Knives by Ian C. Elsamont. This is the first of the novels of the Malazan Empire, which I believe takes place kind of in the middle books. I think it doesn't take place after book 5, I think, but it's definitely after book 3 at the minimum. So this book, I really remember nothing about. I enjoyed the writing style a lot. I think Ian Essamont is equal to Steven Erikson in the world building. I really enjoyed that aspect of the book, but I really did not take to really many of the characters except for who are part of the, I guess, Crimson Guard, or that kind of faction of soldiers that we see in Knight of Knives that show up later in the main, well, not main books, but sort of the Steven Erikson authored books. So Knight of Knives I'm going to have to put way down in Squad Mage. I did enjoy the atmosphere quite a bit. It had like a horror movie type of vibe where our characters were having to sneak around and stay hidden, and it was fun. But I think it was a little, maybe on reread it'll just be better. I did not really take to Night of Knives. Now, Midnight Tides. Oh my god. This is technically a prequel, and I absolutely loved it. It is the longest book, I think, in the series, and the character arcs in this novel are just incredible. This book has the most moments in the series that are iconic for me. Some characters just really shine through the narrative. There's two characters in specific who I'm thinking of, who I'm not going to say the names of, but where we see them throughout this book and how they relate to each other and how they connect is just so powerful. And I loved exploring the new sort of faction that we see in this book. So it's really nice to kind of read this book because it closes the final sort of big holes that you have as a reader that Steven Erikson was sort of rating on. And there were hints throughout these books, especially in book 2, I believe, has a pretty big foreshadowing to what book 5 is all about. So, Midnight Tides, I don't know if I'm going to put it like above Dead House Gates. Is definitely not. Above Memories of Ice is really hard for me. I think it's right equal to each other. But I think I cried more times during Midnight Tides than I did Memories of Ice. So I will give it that edge just based off of that. So, book 6, Bone Hunters. This is a book that I really enjoyed reading, but I thought that the pacing was just a little stretched out a bit. I thought it was a little slow at times. I really enjoyed sort of the first half of the book, and then after that it just really meanders, in my opinion. Although on reread, I'm sure I'm going to understand why it's that length, but I really felt as if this book was longer than it needed to be. So, I'm going to rate it, I think, just above Gardens of the Moon, but I'm not going to have it above House of Chains, because I really had a hard time not really finishing this book, but reading from the halfway point to kind of the 80% point. That section I just really did not care for. It's a lot of characters kind of standing around, talking about what they're going to do. I enjoy characters making plans, but I need some agency and action going on in the meantime on top of that. So, Bone Hunters being above Gardens of the Moon makes sense to me. Now, Reaper's Gale, book 7. I love this book. I really enjoyed reading it, but this is probably the book, just like House of Chains, that I remember the least about, because there's just so much going on in Reaper's Gale, and we're really kind of hopping around everything. It ties together all of the plot lines in the last 6 books. So it's really kind of all over the place, which is okay. I enjoy that, but I really was hoping we'd get a lot more kind of focus throughout this book. And maybe I'm completely wrong and people disagree, but that's sort of how I felt, but I still really loved this book. But I'm going to put it, I think, above or below House of Chains is sort of what I'm thinking. I don't know where I would put it specifically, but I gotta think about that. Also, this character here on the front is who I was alluding to with book 5. I think that character arc is just incredible. I love everything with them. But I think I'll keep it just below a House of Chains in the Ascendant category. I think that makes sense the most for me. So, the final book that I will be ranking is Return of the Crimson God. This is book 2 of the novels of the Malazan Empire. This is by Ian Esselmont. And God, I loved this book. I did a review already on my channel, so if you would like kind of more spoiler talk about this book, then please go check that out. I also have a non-spoiler section of it, so you can just watch that if you're interested. But of course, it's spoilers up to book 7, because this takes place after book 7, Reaper's Gale. So I fucking love this book. I talked about it a lot already, so I think I would put it. I don't know about above Memories of Ice, but I think it's definitely Elder God for me. I really love this book. The characters were incredible. I love the world building. Again, we finally got to see a lot of what was happening on the main continent of Quantali, where the Malazan Empire kind of originated, which is not a spoiler. It's in the prologue of Gardens of the Moon. But I really enjoyed reading this book. I thought the last 200 pages were just perfect. They were my jam. I really enjoyed reading this book. This was a much easier read to me than Nine of Knives. It's kind of funny to see it visualized this way, because there's a huge jump between Knight of Knives to Return of the Crimson God. So I just love this book, and I'm really happy that I've been talking with a commenter who has been really nice and giving me a lot of great points about the Malazan series. And one of my favorite things that they said is that the third book, Stone Wielder, which I don't have on this list, which takes place in between book 9 and 10, that book ties together all of my favorite character storylines from book 2 of this trilogy. So I'm very excited to read Stone Wielder. I'll do that after the Crippled God, which is book 10 of the Malazan Empire. So I'm going to try and save this ranking, and I will do a final ranking once I get through Stone Wielder, I guess. Because after that, I will have the sequel series and also the prequels, the Path of Ascendancy books to look forward to after I finish Stone Wielder. So once I finish Stone Wielder, I will do a new ranking of these books. And I'll try to keep these kind of saved. That way I can just put it back in. No problem. So I will be doing specific book reviews from here on out of each of these books. Book 8, Toll the Hounds. Book 9, Dust of Dreams. And then Book 10, The Crippled God. And also a review for Stone Wielder. So I'll have 4 more videos, Malazan related, coming out before I do that ranking. So plenty to look forward to. My goal is to finish Malazan by the end of August. So I'm picking up my pace. I really need to finish the series, because my original goal was to finish the series last December, because I was really, I just really wanted to just consume it. It's one of my favorite, it is my favorite fantasy series right now, and I decided not to finish it by December of last year, because I wanted to not go too quickly. I really wanted each book to kind of process through me and sort of be digested, but I want to kind of go a bit faster with these final few books, because these are the final books. I want to know what happens. And I did get a kind of big spoiler about the ending of book 8 back when I was reading book 2, which I'm still pissed about, but I don't know the context of it. I just know that something happens. I can't say exactly what that thing is, but it's pretty big. I have zero idea how it's gonna happen, so we shall see. So without further ado, thank you all so much for watching, and please give me what your ranking is of these books if you can. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.